A number of fixtures from around Europe and beyond take center stage this weekend, but with news outside of the pitch also taking center stage as Chelsea deal with the sanctions given against Roman Abramovich. Elsewhere, Man United host a confident Spurs. Is that even a phrase? Jesse Marsch and Leeds United continue to fight in the Premier League. We dive deep around Europe and the race for the title and Champions League spots. And what's next for PSG, MLS and Liga MX fixtures, and much more. Jimmy Conrad is here. Heath Pierce is here. James Bench, of course, is here to go through all of it. Qué Golazo weekend preview begins right now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Qué Golazo, our weekend preview. Thank you so much for being part of the family. Qué Golazo pod on Twitter, wherever you listen to your pods, and, of course, youtube.com/Qué Golazo. I feel by the time the weekend comes, we have made it to 10,000 subs. So ahead of time, thank you so much. James Bench, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm knackered.
I went to you first, James Bench, because we've already been diving deep on the Abramovich situation. So I wanted to see how much energy you brought into it. And you brought exactly what I thought.
Yeah, it's like the sixth time in 24 hours I've had to adjust my camera setup and my microphones and all that, and then it's
Jimmy Conrad. How about you help him out here? I feel so bad for him. He's been so.
You know what?
He's been working hard.
I'll lift you up, James Benjamin. What I'm gonna say is, PSG's in the mud, and you love to see it. Money can't buy you trophies, everybody, unless you're my Newcastle. Then I want you to buy all the trophies that you want. I'm a walking contradiction. That's how I'm feeling today, Luis.
More money, more problems, Jimmy Conrad. Absolutely. Hey, Heath Pierce, what's up, man?
Just predicted that Real Madrid win. I tried desperately to get the link from our producer Des to let me just jump in anywhere on the show that you guys did yesterday. He wouldn't give it to me, so I was offering him extreme amounts of money just to be able to jump in for 1 minute, kind of just say my piece and then exit. But I'm doing good. I'm doing good. There's after all the chaos and the continued chaos around the world, there's a little bit right in the world knowing that PSG can't buy the championship that they so desperately want without having to earn it.
It's a little bit of a sad day when we're rooting for Florentino Perez, I think. But anyway, that'll be...
Go on, Super League. The Super League.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But hey, Kareem the Dream Benzema. I love it. All right, well, welcome everybody. Qué Golazo weekend preview. We begin, as we always do, in the Premier League. And Chelsea host Newcastle United. We're taping this before their game against Norwich. They're away at Norwich, of course, so take that into consideration. And by the way, we mentioned Roman Abramovich. James Bench and yours truly had an emergency pod about this situation. We dive deep into everything, so go there for that. So that's why I'm not jumping to James Bench for this. I think James Bench will thank me, actually. But Jimmy, I wanted your thoughts on it. Abramovich sanctioned. Chelsea, obviously, in disarray as the sale is frozen. Only season ticket holders can attend. No further future tickets can be sold, and much, much more. Your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. It's one way to handle the situation. Now, getting back to our theme, I think, of today of money buying trophies. Under Abramovich, they won 19 trophies in 19 years. So I guess there is some examples out there that you can buy love and buy trophies. I'm not surprised by some type of reaction to the news, to his relationship with Putin, and that there was going to be some types of sanctions. They had to do something. And I don't know where we feel like it falls in the scale of harsh to not harsh enough or whatever it is, but something had to happen. And now I'm actually more curious about what happens to Tuchel and the players and how they respond. They looked very good against Burnley. Reece James brings a ton of balance to that team. Now he's out again. So now you're going to maybe Azpilicueta will go over there, and he's been filling in admirably in his spot, but he's not the same as Reece James, who clearly has a huge impact on that team and how balanced they are and how they attack and defend from that position. It's going to be interesting, but they're going up against my Newcastle, who are trying to take notes from Abramovich about how to buy trophies. So this is a really interesting affair. But yeah, overall, in terms of the sanctions, I got to digest it a little bit more to know, or actually maybe see a game first to see how that plays out, especially at Stamford Bridge.
I think the response has been good, but now those sanctions continue to grow. Obviously, this is sort of par and course with the idea that the sanctions are going to continue to grow and grow and grow until something has happened with what's going on in Ukraine right now. And so we've seen those escalate, and to now be in this situation, it's obviously going to have a continued effect on the club itself. It's going to have a continued effect more on people like Thomas Tuchel, who have to face the media on these types of things, that have to speak up and openly about the job that he still has. And it starts to become a little bit dirtier and dirtier every time that you're representing something that has a little bit of this sort of muddied water connected to it. But the players have shown a response. I mean, there's not a whole lot more that the players can do than the performance that they have now. And that Burnley side, by the way, they showed a little bit of signs of life recently. So the convincing win against Burnley, I think, is a statement win. And it's an unfortunate one for the Chelsea players, the ones on the field. But their performances are going to show how much this really shakes the locker room.
I mean, something strange is going on at Chelsea, because we've spoken about them for the best part of 3 or 4 minutes with 2 former US internationals, and I've heard neither the words Christian nor Pulisic. What a strange state of affairs we have going on here. I mean, you do almost completely forget about all these stories that seem to matter so much to us a few weeks ago. Like, Pulisic really rounding into some level of form. I think he's been fantastic. And, in trying circumstances on and off the pitch, I've been really intrigued by the job that Thomas Tuchel has done, kind of without anyone really noticing, just totally changing what this Chelsea attack's about. A few weeks ago, it was Lukaku, it was Ziyech, it was really reliant on those. Now Mason Mount is back and looking for a bit of form. Kai Havertz is just everything we thought he'd be, the target man / false nine, goal scorer, playmaker. And actually, we're seeing Pulisic slot really nicely into that particular front three as the finisher, the runner, the guy that maybe isn't the most high volume touch, almost kind of working as like something like a traditional striker, the guy that you want on the end of these chances. I'm fascinated to see how he gets on. But obviously, as you say, being at Stamford Bridge on Sunday is going to be so strange, because we just don't know how many more normal games like this there'll be. I mean, we mentioned on the emergency pod about away contingents and that Brentford and since then I've been told that Wolves don't even have a contract in place. So as things stand, I don't think they'd be able to have any away fans there. The other case is whoever Chelsea draw in the Champions League quarterfinal, those quarterfinal games are not part of the Chelsea fans' season ticket. So again, in theory, Chelsea could be playing their Champions League quarterfinal behind closed doors. This is so strange, and you keep kind of wanting to talk about the football, but these things keep dragging you away from it. But it should be a really fascinating game, and particularly odd that I think it's against Newcastle. This major moment in the Abramovich era.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also just a reminder that aside from the fact that Chelsea still has to play Norwich as we tape this, Newcastle has to play Southampton. So Jimmy, with that, I mean, to that point, do you have any betting tips?
Well,
with this
let me just say, from a Newcastle perspective, Eddie Howe has not lost in 2022. Baby, let's go. We're 7 points clear of relegation heading into the Southampton game that's happening today. Only 5 points away from 10th place Crystal Palace. So despite all the doom and gloom for most of the season, we're on the up and up, baby. Let's go. So given what's happening, and I feel like there's going to be an emotional response to what's happening from the players. I know they have this game against Norwich, but it's away from home. I think, and it's all new. I think it's still a bit of a shock. I don't know how much that will impact an away game, but being at home at Stamford Bridge, having these sanctions, having the club shop closed, little things like that where fans, maybe I can't go in there and buy an N'Golo Kante jersey, which sounds like a really sad state of affairs. That should always be, that guy's amazing. But Newcastle, Bruno Guimaraes should start against Southampton. They've got obviously a couple of games in a short period of time. I'm curious to see how he plays against Southampton, and will that allow him to slot in against Chelsea? Obviously a terrific player. Just need to see him get a start. I kind of got a draw here, to be honest, because I think that there could be some emotional impact, and also I think that Newcastle are just got a vibe about him right now. So if you go to the draw, sorry, I'm just scrolling down for it right now. The draw
plus 410.
Plus 410, which I think is tremendous value.
Yeah.
Something I will say very quickly, though, watch how Chelsea perform against Norwich. I know Norwich is maybe not the best of teams to go up against, but without Reece James, we'll see if Pulisic continues to get the start. see little different things. He's going to rotate the squad as well. So take a look at the lineups, see how Newcastle plays against Southampton. But plus 410 for the draw, I think, is tremendous value.
Yeah, I mean, here's my take on this. These players live every single day under tremendous amounts, tremendous.
I like tremendous better.
Tremendous. So yeah, it's tremendous and immense together. Just for
I love
it. They live under a tremendous amount of pressure, and it's constant, right? The British media is very difficult and very harsh on them as players. And while it's a horrible distraction that they're going through, a distraction sometimes is welcomed, whether it's internal or external. That just sort of takes the edge off, right? Like Benj mentioned, we're not talking about Lukaku constantly. We're not talking about the same story all the way last year, going back to Lampard, going to Tuchel. Who's their best 11? Is it Werner? Is it Havertz? Is it Ziyech? Where should Christian Pulisic play? Where's Mason Mount in the conversation of all this? And it allows them to just sort of take a breath, a deep breath in the locker room. I've been in situations where it's hard and it's controversial, whether it's external or internal facing. That controversies happen. It allows you to just sort of almost hide a little bit or come out from hiding when the pressure is high at a club that size. They don't get days off. They don't get breaks. They don't get to have a poor run of form. We're seeing that with Manchester United right now. It is just week after week. I mean, you see it with all the clubs, right? Spurs, a constant state of havoc. Manchester United, all of them. So I think this is a welcomed response. And if you go back to literally a month and a half ago or 2 months ago to their win against Spurs, Chelsea haven't lost. They've actually won every single game outside of the losing in the EFL Cup final, like 19-18 in penalties. And so, overall, I think that they've taken these punches to the face. They've taken these punches to the gut. They continue to run it in stride, and I think they'll continue to do so. So I'm going to go with a win for Chelsea in this one. And I think they're going to continue their form, knowing that they've got a little bit of house money to play with right now, which sounds really messed up, but in a way, I think it's a motivator for them.
Put some respect on Chris Wood's name, okay? Like, that guy knows how to do stuff in the Premier League. I don't know about scoring goals per se, but he's a presence up top, okay? And Joe Linton in midfield, a revelation. It's a draw, plus 410, everybody. Stamp it.
Benj, what's your prediction, Benj?
I really hate to say this because Jimmy's going to perk up.
Yeah, I'm already perked up, Benj. Let's go.
You think Newcastle can get something here? Like a win?
I think they're going to win.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
You got to look at the form table. As Jimmy says, this is a team getting, now admittedly, against not very good opponents, but it's getting Champions League level results.
Yeah.
And I
predicted the Real Madrid win. I'm literally the smartest person I know. I'm
the smartest man alive.
I am literally the smartest person that I know right now in the last couple of hours.
All right. So Heath, you're going with a Chelsea win. Jimmy, you're staying with the draw. Benj is going with the win here.
I appreciate that. I'm like, wow, me and Benjamin are best friends now, but I'm gonna keep it based in reality and be. I hope for the win. I hope I'm wrong that it's not a draw, but I'm feeling a draw here.
Yeah, well, Chelsea have won 8 of their last 10 Premier League games against Newcastle, including the last 3 in a row. But yes, I know stats are there to be changed. I know. So and the thing is, it's difficult because both of these teams are playing before we tape, even before that game as well. So take that with what you will. By the way, so Des Norris is already giving awards here. A week in the life of Hollywood Heath: best dresser, most handsome on Tuesday, the smartest guy in the world on Thursday. What's Sunday recap going to bring? Heath Pierce?
This is where life brings you right back down again. Similar to what goes up must come down. So yeah, unfortunately. I don't know what Sunday will bring.
Hey, listen,
Chelsea Football Club. Yeah.
Before we move on, I do want to ask this. Jamie Carragher wrote an article for the Telegraph about Manchester United, should jump at Thomas Tuchel right now, because there is. I wonder what's in his head. I would love your opinions on this. Going round, Jimmy, what do you think?
Well, I think it'd be better than Pochettino. I don't think that Pochettino is going to solve Manchester United's problems. I really don't. And he doesn't have the players to play the way that he likes to play. He's a Bielsa disciple. There's a certain type of pressuring, and they just don't have the horses to play that high press system. We already see it under Rangnick, who's starting to fall back into Ole Gunnar, Solskjaer type tactics. But yeah, Tuchel would provide something. And I think that he with this experience of being in the Premier League and understanding the opponents and how, just the ebbs and flows of how this league works and how to have success in it, even though he hasn't proven to do that. He backed into the top 4 last season, if we all remember, and he's not pushing Liverpool or City that much this season. I don't mind the idea, especially with this whole Chelsea issue. If they can go,
that's where I was going, Jimmy.
Yeah,
I guess the other part of it was like, would Tuchel even be persuaded? Do you think?
Yeah,
because you saw the frustration a few weeks ago, right? I just don't know, like what's going on in his head right now. I know that it's I'm trying to get a clickbait kind of situation here, but there is something to be said about, you said, Heath, obviously players like a distraction, but I just can't stop thinking about the fact that this is the last thing that Thomas Tuchel wants to think about, I guess.
You don't want to deal with the distraction all the time. It's just a welcome sort of, not welcome because of the circumstances around it, but it is one that changes the dynamic of a locker room. But yeah, that type of move could be one. It'd be a highly controversial one in the midst of all that. It would also allow them to say the best way to get rid of Cristiano Ronaldo, who is fantastic, by the way, not saying that, but he changes the dynamic of the team, is to let him get 2 touches a game under Tuchel's system, where you get 1 on the kickoff.
That's one more than Lukaku.
One to close out the half, and that's the fastest way to see a player out of your club. But again, so many pieces have to change. Like if you're Thomas Tuchel, you're looking at that going, man, that is a very, like, this is messed up over there, but that team, that's not a team. I've got to go in there, and maybe it's a good challenge, but yeah, it would be hard to convince.
Wait, just really quick. This is a Liverpool player saying what Manchester United should do. I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Go ahead,
Ben.
Jamie Carragher, our colleague Jamie Carragher.
I get it. I'm just trying to make sure there's some context here. That,
he likes to troll. He likes to
lifetime Liverpool players suggesting what Manchester United should be doing.
I know.
But I do think this is going to get pretty intolerable for Thomas Tuchel, the current situation. If you're a Bundesliga manager, Liga and Serie A, it's par for the course that your sporting director comes out once a week, if not more, to address, the goings on that are not relevant for a coach, be it transfer policy, be it sanctions that are placed on your owner because of his role in the war in Ukraine and his role in supporting Vladimir Putin. And Thomas Tuchel, I think almost his challenge as well is the first time he addressed this, he spoke so eloquently that it becomes a thing that everyone has to ask. If I'm in the press conference on Sunday and if I get a question in, it won't be about whatever happens between Newcastle and Chelsea. It will be about the ownership, because that's the big story. And it's a really thankless position for Tuchel to be in. And I think if this keeps going on, it's actually a position he will not want to be in. He loves managing Chelsea, loves it, but no one would want this. And I do think suddenly if Man United were to try and tempt him, I just don't think it's impossible. But as Jimmy says, ex-Chelsea, ex-Liverpool player creating a bit of nuisance.
So
it.
Yeah.
Really quick, FIFA just came out and are allowing foreign players and coaches to temporarily leave Russian and Ukrainian clubs and sign for new teams. So does Chelsea fall into that? Because of all this uncertainty? I'm just throwing that out there as
no, they are sanctioned. I mean, they can't. They literally are frozen right now. They can't.
Right.
They can't. So that's a situation that can probably evolve.
Let's say at the end of the season. At the end of the season, if they haven't,
it's going to be reviewed on May 31st. So after May 31st,
they're going to have a buyer though. So
exactly. So many parts, as James Bench and I discussed in the emergency pod, many parts just continue to change and move, et cetera, et cetera. So to your point, the business situation is frozen, and that includes the sale, unless the UK government takes over. So, there's a lot going on here. All right, let's move on. And another pitch, by the way, go to the emergency pod. We talk all about this. All right, let's talk Manchester United. Tottenham, by the way. Tottenham feeling good against Everton, obviously. And now Man United, who really need to get going if they want to get a Champions League spot. Heath Pierce, let's begin with you. United, Tottenham. What do you see here?
This is a good game. And I never, I don't know. I don't know
what dad thing to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I thought Man United was a good game. Turns out it wasn't a good game. This one,
it was for City, I guess.
Yeah, it was for City. But when I see sort of the way it's sort of come together, you have this Spurs side that are in fantastic form right now, and really making a push and a statement where they pushed Everton to not a single shot during their match. You have Harry Kane that's back in fantastic form right now. Son, who's back in fantastic form right now. Kulusevski, who's changed the dynamic of their attack in the way that we saw Dele Alli a couple years back. And so I look at this Spurs side and I go, man, this is a team a little bit on a mission right now. And they're going through their own controversies where if they were to lose this one, then the talk kind of continues. Conte's got a fantastic record against Manchester United as well. And then on the flip side, you have Manchester United playing for pride. Like there's literally something there. And sometimes I think about myself in these situations, was never in that situation with those clubs, but I think about sort of playing for pride. And that's a fragile thing because sometimes you're just a bad team and the team just continues to get battered and you go, this game, this match, and it doesn't really have the legs to stand on. But this is one where Manchester United, they could have Ronaldo back in the team. They could have Cavani back. They could have, Pogba is still on the side. They've got a number of these players with experience that are going to have something to say about that last performance. They've got the whole world, especially Man United legends and everyone being highly critical of this team, of giving up in the second half, that there has to be some sort of response. And so I'm sort of, sitting on the fence in terms of who's going to win this one. I could see this one playing out as a draw just because I think it's beneficial for both teams. But if I had to go on form alone or on a team that I think has the weapons
You're going to say
to win, I'm going to say Spurs.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Bench?
See, I'm going to kind of disagree with Heath in that I think a draw is actually a bit of a problem for both of these teams. I know for Man United, its hopes are fading fast, but they will still think of themselves as in this top four race. Spurs as well. But if you look at it, Arsenal will come on, maybe come on to talk about Arsenal, but they're playing Leicester. It's certainly not a given, but I think Arsenal are going to go into that game confident of getting 3 points. If you're letting them slip further away at this time of the season, you might not get another chance to catch them. So I'm intrigued if it's 1-1 in the 80th minute. Do these teams just kind of have to start swinging for the fences? I mean, just looking at the table now, a point and United are level with Arsenal, but they played 4 games more. A point for Spurs and they're 2 points off Arsenal, having played 2 games more. So we're kind of at the stage where you've got to win. I don't think Arsenal are going to keep up this form, which is some of the best in Europe in terms of points in the last 10 games. But huge pressure. I'm with Heath, though, that Spurs look like things are going right. Equally, huge praise to Antonio Conte, but when you're turning Matt Doherty into a world-class wing-back, I'm not sure it's going to last. So I don't really know where this game's going.
He's got to ride the wave. He's on
a player development plan. It's an individual development plan, and it's working.
What's interesting about this particular matchup is the last time these two teams played were both at Spurs Stadium, and they lost. Man United won 3-0 back at Halloween, October 30th, and then last season they won 3-1. But the last time they played at Old Trafford, it was 6-1. That famous 6-1 game. I think Mourinho was giving a big middle finger to everybody at that point because he was still in charge. I don't know if Old Trafford has that same type of fortress in intimidation factor that it once had. And I really like how Kulusevski's fallen into a rhythm with Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. Harry Kane is in top form, as it's already been said. And when he drops into midfield, I think what Kulusevski does very well, and Heung-min Son's already been doing it, is they play in advance of Harry Kane. And so they continue to occupy the center back so Harry Kane can find those pockets. And that puts pockets of space, which puts a lot of pressure on the holding midfielders. And in this, is it going to be McTominay? If he's by himself, I think, is Pogba going to really track Bruno Fernandes? I mean, how are they going to set up and try to defend either the passing lanes into Harry Kane or defend him when he gets it on the half turn? Because when he gets it and goes, you're in trouble because of the runs that Heung-min Son and Kulusevski are doing. And then with Doherty, who's been playing out of his mind, and you got Reguilón, who I think will start, even though Sessegnon started against Everton.
Yeah, Sessegnon's hurt, I believe.
He came up. So Reguilón came on and scored. So I think he's in good form, but it seems like they're starting to understand what Conte wants, and now it's starting to play out. Now, whatever you want to say about Everton, that's a big conversation too. I'm sure we'll talk about them a little bit. With regard to United, though, I found this to be interesting. Diogo Dalot had started. I tried to add a little thing there. Dalot.
I like him. Yeah.
He came out of the lineup, and when Rangnick first took over, Dalot started right back. He identified that Wan-Bissaka wasn't good enough, and Dalot came in. He played 9 league games under Rangnick. They kept 4 clean sheets and conceded 7 goals in those 9 games. In the 3 games that Wan-Bissaka has now played, they've already conceded 6. And Wan-Bissaka was at fault for both goals against Leeds and was, I thought, pretty easily beaten in the build-up to a couple City goals. And just his positioning. And as much as I thought Wan-Bissaka was going to kick on when he made the move from Crystal Palace to United, he really hasn't. And I think Delot's got to come back into the team. Luke Shaw and Varane coming off of illnesses. Are they going to be available for this one? I'm with Heath on this. I think Spurs are going to show up. I think they're going to build off of this performance they had against Everton. And I just think mentally they are in a better spot. I will say, though, you have an X factor named Cristiano Ronaldo, 15 goals in 30 games this season. He seems motivated and kind of pissed off he was left out, or whatever the smoke is around why he didn't go and even attend the City game. So I think he'll start. He's trained on Tuesday along with Cavani, and I think he's going to be ready for the Champions League. He needs to get some minutes before that Champions League game against Atletico Madrid.
Well, this is a massive game for both teams, and as James mentioned, the only thing I'll say is that a draw favors nobody in this one, of course. All right, let's move on here. By the way, I'll do a little roundup here. Leeds United against Norwich, as we mentioned. Both these teams are playing on Thursday before we tape, so take that with what you will. And Everton against Wolves as well. And to Jimmy's point, we are going to talk about Everton right now. Toffees, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, I was worried about this because, this was a mountain, 3 mountains to climb for Frank Lampard. So, what could happen there? A team that have, last time they got relegated from the top flight was in the 50s, never from the Premier League. Yes, Arsenal, the other club we know. James mentioned. All right, so let's talk about these games. I guess from a quick fire perspective. James Bench, beginning with you. What do you think?
Well, Everton, no new manager bounce because the manager's not very good. Harsh reality. The defense is not very good. The midfield,
harsh reality,
not very good. And the strikers are great, but you never get them the ball and they're never fit. I think
the truth serum that you have right now is great.
Keep going, Benji. You're on it.
Everton are going to start falling really quick, and I think it just takes one of the other teams that are actually organised to have a plan. And even if they don't have players as high profile as Everton's, I think someone is going to jump ahead of them. For Leeds, I loved what Jesse Marsch did in that first game. It will take a little while to deprogram some of the Bielsa things you saw for the goal that they conceded. That Stuart Dallas, I think, was just going to man mark someone before, and then he just was like, "No, I don't do this anymore." But Jesse Marsch has made a great impact. I don't want to railroad this into a big chat about Americans, but I think he's been really impressive in how he stepped in, kind of not, brought quite an ego-free, relaxed and positive atmosphere, and a good start in that first game. Get Bamford back, Calvin Phillips will be back soon, Liam Cooper as well. I think Leeds will be fine, and I think Norwich is a great team to pick up 3 points against and start some momentum.
Yeah, I just want more team huddles. I want to have Jesse Marsch trigger the British media as much as humanly possible.
Can I say on that, the
Please?
British media haven't been triggered. Like, one person on TalkSport is not triggering of the British media. The only people I've seen get triggered are some people in America who are just waiting for like a perceived offense that they can take.
We're a little sensitive over here, okay, Ben? Listen, Bob Bradley lasted 84 days or something, okay? We're a little bit.
I want Jesse Marsch to just say the word soccer one time, and then I can get triggered. If he says it one time, he says he's always said football since he started playing. I've heard him say soccer before. Just say it once, we'll all be happy. And then
we've heard him say soccer so many times. Just say it.
Just say, yeah, he loves the soccer. Why can't he just come out and say, I love the soccer?
Benji, next time you get a chance to ask him a question, just say
I'm thinking I'm going to go to Wolves next week.
This is what I want. I want him to come in dressed as Ted Lasso and just say soccer the entire time. But anyway, Jimmy, thoughts on this? As we mentioned, Leeds still have to play the greatest club in the world on Thursday, and then they play Norwich, and then Everton against Wolves as well. What thoughts on those?
I think what I'll say very quickly about Leeds and Norwich, they have to win that game. So not to say that the game away to Leicester wasn't a must win. Obviously it was there, but it was the first game that he took over. Curious to see now at home against Aston Villa how they perform with the pressure of being at home. I think that does change a few things, and the eagerness from the fans of like, okay, let's see this Jesse Marsch guy in action. You know, he's got to do it in front of them.
His first home game. Yep.
And I think people, given how Aston Villa did play against Southampton, they're probably like, all right, well, let's just see how we perform. Hopefully we get a result. But that Norwich game is different. You have to win that game. And you can't have any slip-ups in that one. There's no mistakes will be allowed against a Norwich team that has been poor this season or a little inconsistent, of course. So that one feels a little bit different. And I'm curious to see, obviously, the result against Aston Villa will dictate some of the narrative around that. But that doesn't change the fact that that's a must-win. With regard to Everton, that back line is a shambles. I mean, it's so bad, and they're not going to fix anything until they can fix that back line. And to Benja's point, if you can't give good service to some very talented strikers in good spots, it's going to be hard for them to score. I think they have 26 goals in 25 games or something. It's kind of embarrassing, given the attacking prowess they have at their disposal.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the curious thing for me is Burnley. Obviously, they've lost their last two, but showed a little bit of signs of life, and now they're just a couple of points. So 1 point away from Everton, 2 points away from Leeds, and then you've got Brentford a little bit ahead of that. And so when I look at this one, again, Benji said it, this is a great time to get points off of Norwich. I think it's the stat that I saw was 33. Norwich have failed to win 33 of their last 37 Premier League matches, and you don't get to have. When we talk about nobody's talking about Jesse Marsch, you don't get to have a learning experience in this game, right? You get to win this game. You go and you win, and you can talk about how the team did better. As Jimmy mentioned, the Leicester one, yeah, there was something on the table for them, and they looked far better, as Ben's just mentioned, than in that game than they did all season long. But now you have to go and you have to get 3 points because you have a Burnley side that do have some ability, it seems like, to be able to connect 2 or 3 results together, which could keep them in the run of form. And the only one that's got worse form than Everton right now is Leeds. And so that's got to turn around. Yes, they've got this new manager, but I am a little bit worried about that. If you can't beat Norwich, then I'm really, really worried. But they should be able to win this game if Jesse Marsch has a few of those pieces in place to improve where they were before, and then they get some production on the attacking end. They should win that one.
Okay, our producer Des Norris has said a very quick final thoughts on the rest, emphasis on very. So back to you, Heath, then Jimmy, then Bench. Any other notes from the remaining fixtures from the weekend?
Arsenal are playing against Leicester. They should win that one. And you mentioned earlier that it's nobody wins if Man United and Spurs draw, but I'll tell you who wins. Arsenal do. Arsenal win if they draw. So that's my only final thought on the Premier League.
Good point, Jimmy.
My final thought on this is that a lot of these teams are playing 2 games in 3 days. So the rotation, the skill and the ability of these teams to adapt to that situation, and obviously the managers to get it all right, could really determine who finishes top 4, who gets relegated. So this is a really important 2 games.
Yeah, Bench.
Yeah, the other game we haven't talked about that's worth keeping half an eye on, Brentford against Burnley, or is it Burnley against Brentford? I can't quite remember which order.
Brentford against Burnley, yeah.
Like I think we all secretly think that Burnley are going to do something because they're always in this position and they always survive, but they need to do it soon. Grace Robertson wrote a great newsletter on this. You should subscribe to the newsletter if you don't. Just pointing out as well that we all started getting excited about Weghorst. 700 minutes in the Premier League, 1 goal. They need to start scoring some goals, Burnley.
Yeah. My fantasy team really suffered there. All right. And obviously the other thing is Palace hosting Man City and Brighton hosting Liverpool. And of course, this title race is getting tighter and tighter. All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, as I mentioned, we go for the rest of Europe. Serie A, of course, who's going to finish on top as Milan, Inter, and Napoli all playing. None of them playing any European football. So what does that mean for the Scudetto race? La Liga as well gets very interesting, specifically in those Champions League spots. PSG, what's next for them? MLS, Liga MX, and much, much more. Qué Golazo weekend preview. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Qué Golazo weekend preview. Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pierce, and James Bench. Hey, Qué Golazo listeners, we want you to compete with us in a bracket challenge. I'll be there. Jimmy will be there. Heath will be there. I'm going to force James Bench to be there as well. And Jonathan Johnson. You join us at cbsports.com/Golazo brackets, and the winner gets a $100 gift card to Paramount Plus. You'll be able to watch the NCAA tournament games on Paramount Plus, tons of soccer from the Champions League to CONCACAF golf majors in the spring, and NFL football in the fall. Also, we're excited for the debut of Halo, which is streaming March 24th exclusively on Paramount Plus. Head to ParamountPlus.com/Halo to try it for free. But back to the brackets. Who enters just one? You need to do way, way more to compete against friends and fill out your bracket for the chance to win a trip to the 2023 Final Four. You can play on the CBS Sports app or at cbssports.com/Golazo brackets. There you have it. All right, Serie A. Don't forget, everybody, calling Calcio every single week, every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, of course. Make sure that you go there for a deeper dive into all things Italian. Kristen Cupo and the talented round of Paramount Plus Serie A talent, of course. All right, let's get going. Jimmy, who's finishing the weekend on top? Milan, Inter, or Napoli? Inter have Torino, Napoli have Verona, Milan have Empoli. Go.
I will say that Milan will finish on top of the table. They're going to beat Empoli at home. Pretty good at home, 8-3-3 over 14 games at the San Siro. Obviously, just played Inter Milan there in the first leg of the Coppa Italia semifinals. Coming off a big win against Napoli away from home. I think they're going to, we want to build off that momentum. You don't want to have this big win and then have a let off the following week. So I think Stefano Pioli will have the guys in a good spot mentally. Inter are away from home, solid away from home, second best record away from home in Serie A behind Milan. Empoli's pretty good away from home as well, but it's not going to be enough. Torino, though, is going to be a tough one. If Inter end up drawing against Torino, I wouldn't be surprised. It's not an easy place to play and go get a result. Juve just drew there 1-1 a couple weeks ago. So that will be interesting. And then with regard to Napoli, away to Hell Yes Verona, as I like to call them, they're another bogey team for a lot of teams. You got Gio Simeone, who's banging in goals for fun, and that's going to be tough. So I think Milan, being the one team that's at home, I think has the advantage to remain on top.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's also Empoli haven't won a game since mid-December, and so the odds of winning that one are good. My worry continues to be for AC Milan, though. It's just goal production. I mean, Giroud's goal, which was fantastic against Napoli, just made him joint top scorer with Zlatan, who doesn't play for AC Milan at all ever because he's always injured now, on 8 goals also with Rafael. And so I just wonder, that goal production needed from a few players is going to have to pick up. I know it's the Italian league and you don't need to score a million goals, but that has changed a lot, and so has that reputation of the league. And so I just worry about their goal production for the rest of the year. But for this weekend, I see AC Milan finishing the weekend out on top.
Yeah, I'm with the other guys as well. Heath's right that it's a worry when you're trying to win a title and your top scorers on 7 or so goals. They share the goals quite well, I think it's fair to say, and Leao is looking better week in, week out. But just listening to all you guys as well, one of the things I keep thinking is, look down that table, Juventus aren't that far off at all now, and the way in which the top 3 have slowed a little bit, and Juventus unbeaten since they lost at Stamford Bridge, that horrible game. You've got to keep an eye on them. Away to Sampdoria, I think that's no easy game either. But we're talking about it as a 3-horse race now. I wonder if we'll be talking about it as a 3-horse race come next weekend.
Yeah.
By the way, the last thing I would say on that is if Juventus do slip up, Roma are also in fantastic form right now. A lot of those are draws, but they're not losing any games, and they're continuing to close that gap that, in terms of a top 4 race for them. So if Juventus do hit a little bit of a stall, or anybody in the sort of the top 3 or 4 hit a little bit of stall, Roma are certainly making a case for
I love you for saying that, Heath, but we're talking about a Mourinho team that was always like one step away from hitting that self-destruct.
I think they're at that point where they're like, despite Mourinho, we're going to try to get results because he gets sideline bans all the time and it doesn't really affect their results whatsoever.
Actually, they play better when he's not on the sideline, but yeah, that's true.
Let's move on to La Liga, because the Champions League spots there are interesting as well. Obviously, we know what Real Madrid have been doing, but after that, I mean, listen, Sevilla, obviously, they have a little bit of a cushion and they have a game in hand as well. But Barcelona, Heath Pierce, pretty impressive. I mean, thank you, Goldman Sachs. Thank you, Xavi, because they've just lost 2 games so far since Xavi joined, and now they're third. They're third.
Did you just thank Goldman Sachs?
Yeah.
Parachute payments.
You're such a New
applying-
Yorker. You're such a New Yorker.
I'm
Oh yeah,
applying for a
you
loan.
live in the seaport. You're right next to Wall Street. Of course, you're thinking Goldman
They give me a
Sachs
high five every time I say that. So.
for the redevelopment of your neighborhood. Yeah. No, I mean it is a fantastic turnaround. And again, when I was just reading about Barcelona and sort of the form, and I was looking at the table, and I see Memphis Depay is in sort of the top 10 scorers in the league, and I was like, man, it really is. And it goes back to some of the things we talked about with Chelsea, which is just sometimes it's just a few little things that change the whole narrative of a club. And obviously Barcelona had a million things going wrong, but now their just play on the field is showing something. And they're now showing it in terms of points, right? 48 points. They could potentially catch Sevilla. Obviously, I don't think they're going to catch Real Madrid, who have completely run away, and Atletico Madrid are still in the conversation as well. But just the change in the energy, and maybe it's just the way in which we look at things. It's it could be as simple as the fact that I know James Benz used to wear really baggy jeans, and now he wears his skinny jeans. And when he looks at baggy jeans, he goes, "What was I ever wearing back then?" And sometimes you look at teams just in the way in which, like the lens of which we all look at them, which is, oh, they're incrementally better, they're incrementally worse, so they're way better because Xavi, and they've got a few results. And so I'm still curious to know, like, is the foundation of this team different? Is it better? Are they far better, or are they just on a run of form, or are we just happier when a Barcelona side is a good side?
Those are great points. I think what I'm seeing, they scored 14 goals in their last 4 games in all competitions, and I think that really speaks to not only them finishing their opportunities, but the amount of opportunities that they're creating. Every time we see them play, even against Elche, Ferran Torres comes on at halftime. The dude could have had a hat trick by himself in the second half. I mean, he's in particular finding himself in good spots. But I think that because they've added so many more attacking weapons, and these attacking weapons look like they're enjoying themselves. I'm looking at Ousmane Dembele, Aubameyang, Traore. They look like they're having fun, and they're playing with smiles on their faces. And when those players in particular play that way, it just elevates not only their own performances, but the performances of everybody around them. You got De Jong, who I think is playing in a more advanced position. Frankie De Jong, that is, not Luke. And I think that's allowing him to enjoy himself. I think Xavi's really pushing the right buttons. He's figuring out the best team that he has. That back line for me is still a little bit vulnerable, but Ter Stegen seems to be making some big saves at the right time. And if they continue to score 3-4 goals a game, it doesn't really matter. Now, the last time they played against Osasuna, they drew 2-2 and they gave up a late goal. That's what they have to shake, I think, for them to really make a permanent spot in the top 4, which I think they will do. But if they can shake that, Chimi Avila scored like the 86th minute the last time these two teams played. Now they're playing against Galatasaray in the Europa League. Had they had to travel to Istanbul to play and then come home to play Osasuna, maybe I'd say the travel and maybe some other things could give Osasuna a chance. So I think aren't going to be easy to beat. But because they've got 2 consecutive home games here, Europa League and then Osasuna at home, I think Barcelona are going to run away with this and win this quite comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, every word of praise that Jimmy and Heath have said for Barcelona is thoroughly merited. And it's kind of really exciting to see them sort of trying to go back to the old ways, but also bringing in these like modern twists. Like imagine Adama Traore playing in that Barcelona team of Xavi's playing career. Equally, I think we do have to acknowledge that like this has all been given an almighty helping hand by teams like Betis just falling apart down the stretch. And I think we don't like really need to worry, I think, too much that Barcelona will be top 4, because Betis look like it's gone for them. I think for them, maybe a big deal was getting to the Copa del Rey final. And if they win that, it's a great season for them, whatever their league standing, it has to be said. But like the momentum's gone there. Maybe you say the same thing as well about Real Sociedad. They're a bit in and out, and Barcelona have just upped it a bit. You know, like Jimmy said, fantastic depth in that front line. It's gone from like, well, I mean, I said do we throw on Luke De Jong, but they still do sometimes, because it's like when we always used to campaign for Andy Carroll to go in an England squad. You just want the big man that you can throw crosses to in the last 10 minutes when you're 2-1 down. But that's great when you've also got like a Dembele or a Ferran Torres or an Adama to come off the bench, or Memphis. It's they're so good.
Yeah, Jimmy.
What I'll just jump in really quick and say, this is a big 2 weeks in general for Barcelona in this new look, because they've got Galatasaray in the Europa League. They got Osasuna at home, which is what we're previewing for this weekend. They got Galatasaray away next week, and then they go to Madrid to play El Clasico on March 20th, Sunday, March 20th. So
finally a good Clasico, I feel.
And then after the international break, they host Sevilla. So these next 5 games for them are going to be really important, not only in terms of where they finish top 4, but can they continue on in the Europa League, which I think we expect them to do against Galatasaray. But those games against Madrid and Sevilla on either side of that international break are really going to, not only they're going to get top 4, whether they lose both of those games. It's more, is this the Barcelona that we're going to see moving forward? Do they have the confidence to hang with Madrid and to beat Sevilla? And I can't wait for the next few weeks for Barcelona.
Yeah, Barcelona have won, by the way, their last 3 games in La Liga, and that's their best run in the competition since winning 6 consecutive in February of and April of 2021. That was under Ronald Koeman. So, as Jimmy said, a very important time for Barca specifically. All right, very quick. PSG playing Bordeaux. James Bench, Pochettino, like, is he gonna make it to the end of the season? Like, does it matter? What's got? I mean, what do we think now? Now, with PSG, even though they lost to Nice, and they could, I don't know, fault again this weekend. You would think that Liga is still theirs, but Pochettino's fate interests me. James Bench.
Yeah, I would be inclined. There's no point sort of like flogging a dead horse here. I kind of disagree with the prevailing view around PSG about Mauricio Pochettino. And, as we said on the recap last night, if everything keeps failing with different managers, maybe it's not the managers. But if you've made your mind up, don't keep the guy hanging around. Don't waste everyone's time. Get rid of him. Stop playing Wijnaldum. I know he didn't play all that often, but stop playing the players you don't want to build around. Take a look at these academy products that year in, year out you lose to other teams. Start making sure that the next Nkunku, the next Dembele are playing at PSG and they're not going off and then you're trying to buy them back. And PSG don't have a match of significance to play until September. No, unless maybe they got Coupe de France, maybe they care about that. But that's the reality. This is a club built for the Champions League. So you may as well start thinking about how you want to attack next year's rather than, giving Messi some more minutes that he doesn't want to play and you don't want him to play.
I think they're in a crucial period, similar to Manchester United, that you've got a bunch of these stars and the decisions you make in the next couple of months, whether that's keep finding a way to keep Mbappe or him going. What happens with Messi? What's the status with Neymar, who, I don't know what Neymar we're going to get constantly. He's out for half the seasons. He's obviously a huge global star. And when he's in his game, he's one of the best there ever was to play the game. But you're at this sort of crossroads now that you can actually make this change and say, hey, okay, we're going to continue to be a huge club, as James mentioned. We're going to continue to be a Champions League club. We're going to challenge for it with a few stars and then also fill in the rest of those pieces. Whereas I think they went to this extreme because you had all these players available for free. And I think the experiment needs to stop. You haven't gotten anything out of Sergio Ramos. You've been in and out with, Messi. You haven't gotten the production that you want from Messi. You haven't gotten the production you want from Neymar this year. Mbappe's been phenomenal. And he's you wouldn't think that he would be the only player that you're talking about in a positive light. That the decisions they make now, whether that's Pochettino or otherwise, is going to shape the next couple of seasons. And if they do status quo with this and just try to keep the team together because they go, oh, we kind of got screwed out of that and there should have been a foul against Benzema and it would have changed everything, and make all the excuses you need to go, let's give it one last run. It's our senior year of high school. We're going to win the state championship type of thing. Like you got to make some changes. And that could involve more than one of their big stars and more than one of their big name players that they currently have rostered.
I will say that it would be incredibly refreshing for PSG to hit the reset button and just ditch all the old guys, no matter what their names are, no matter how much success they've had in the past. It didn't work. To Heath's point, I love the analogy about senior year. That's how it felt this year. Hey, the gang's back together. Look how good we are on paper. We're going to win everything. And it just felt like in some ways they were disinterested, that they weren't really together as a group for whatever reason, whether it's the Mbappe stuff that's been following him this whole season, whether it was the Messi stuff, him coming to a new league and not really seeing him take over like we used to, and that Dembele, Dembele, I guess, will maybe come in the future. Mbappe
Dembele's blamed for everything.
Oh yeah, of course. But Mbappe really being the guy that was the big difference maker consistently, which I thought was a surprise to everybody. We thought Messi would step up every once in a while. Neymar, I don't know. It's interesting, and I think this team, to bring on those young players, to find that nice mix of young and old, I think this was something they need to get to. And I think it's in some ways they have to face up, look at themselves in the mirror and say, this experiment of us being kind of Real Madrid Galacticos model isn't working. And I'm curious to see how they approach the rest of the season, because to everybody's, it's interesting times for PSG.
I'm surprised Gallagher didn't say that they're going to poach Thomas Tuchel.
Well, they might. You never know. I go back to what Jonathan Johnson said about their fans and how they were worried about losing their identity. I think pressing the reset button is for Qatar Sports Investment to leave, to be honest with you. I think you got to completely 180 this, because it's just, to your point, it's just not working. This 5-year plan is not working. There is a problem with the culture at PSG, and that needs to really be completely revamped. All right, let's finish up here and let's go to North America. MLS first, some exciting games in Major League. Jesse Marsch, ready? Soccer to look ahead to. So Jimmy and Heath will serve as our leaders to let us know what's going on. And James Benj, I want you to act as the fan and ask questions, because guess what? Austin FC are on fire, baby, and they're facing Portland Timbers. And we got a really tasty one as well, as Seattle Sounders host the Galaxy. Heath, let's go with you first, baby. What do you have here?
Man, this is interesting just because we're so early in the season. You start to continue to see things come to life. Obviously, I love when Seattle play LA Galaxy. That's one that I'm really excited about in this one. And then again, Austin really on this turnaround from last year, I believe. And Jimmy, maybe you know, I think the lowest scoring team in the league, at least at home, are on this incredible tear right now. And then Portland is another team that you mentioned, Luis, that kind of don't, in terms of supporter culture and those things, get the attention, but never get the respect that they deserve in terms of their performances, in terms of the team that they put together there, and in terms of just the general record. And so that's another team that I'm excited to see. And then ultimately just sort of see the turnaround. Obviously, we saw Sebastian Lletget get another goal in CONCACAF Champions League against Pumas. His form has been incredible. Christian Roldan's form has been incredible as well. All the things that are going to make the U.S. men's national team player haters very, very upset that our domestic based players are leading their teams at the moment. But yeah, overall, what I'm most curious to see is just some of the teams like Cincinnati. I'm looking at Houston. I'm looking at who else do I have on this list right now? I mean, they're playing against Orlando, Cincinnati. I'm looking at San Jose, teams that need to show a little bit of life early on in the season, that are have been struggling since the end of last year, and coming into this year, I'm not convinced with.
What I'll say very quickly on the back of that is that I want to see all these teams continue to play. Like, every game right now is super meaningful in MLS, because I think a lot of teams are still working out their identity. We can use Seattle Sounders versus LA Galaxy, probably the most marquee matchup in the league. Sounders have scored 8 goals in their 3 CONCACAF Champions League games, including a big first leg 3-0 win over León from Liga MX. But they haven't scored yet in MLS. 2 games, no goals. And they lost to Nashville at home, and they lost to Real Salt Lake. That obviously has to change. Maybe their focus is on the Champions League instead. And we haven't had an MLS team win it since 2000, when LA Galaxy did it way back when. So I'm curious to see how that game plays out. With regard to Austin FC, they played a bad Cincinnati team and won 5-0. And then they played an Inter Miami team that I still think is trying to figure their thing out. So 10 goals there. I talked to Josh Wolf, the head coach, my former roommate with the national team in Kansas City back in the day. And he's like, we're going to really find out what we're made of against Portland, because they have to travel to Portland, a tough place to play. And Portland are tough. They got MLS Cup finalists for a reason last season. So there's a whole bunch of games that I'm excited about. And just to see how some certain teams are going to respond. Colorado versus Kansas City, 2 teams that were on the top of the table of the Western Conference last season. Another fun one to watch. So if you can find some time to watch an MLS game, there's not going to be a bad one this weekend.
One of the things that kind of interests me is Thursday, we've got Greg Berhalter naming his squad for US men's national team. That's such important games. Has anyone in this short space of time, or maybe this weekend, is there anyone that is like playing for their place in the squad who might be able to be that early season bolter we often see in Europe?
I mean, for me, I'd say Sebastian Lletget. He was such a crucial part of 2 years under Greg Berhalter, who put a ton of trust in him, had, played some of the most matches, scored some big goals, and mostly friendly games under Greg Berhalter. But it's sort of been on the outs, and one that I was like, I don't even know if he gets called in in the future. But with the loss of Weston McKennie, you now have a need for a player that can play that two-way midfielder, that late runner into the box. And Sebastian Leget's form has been fantastic, both starting in the league and now since his trade from LA Galaxy to New England Revolution. Bruce Arena, who he came up under at the LA Galaxy, has really gotten the most out of him as a player. And I would just wonder if there was this sort of a turning a corner of not just our perceived form, but his actual form and confidence that could be important to the national team in this upcoming window.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say Jesus Ferreira from FC Dallas. He's been looked at as a number 9 for us, and we need players that can really kind of own that spot. A lot of them haven't been scoring goals. He hasn't scored yet in 2 games for FC Dallas, so I'm curious to see how he does against Nashville. He'll be playing right up against a national team teammate in Walker Zimmerman. So if he can have some success, that would be, I think, go a long way towards not only him being included, but maybe even potentially starting in one of the big 3 matchups we have coming up.
Yeah, the midfield will obviously be the focus given Weston McKennie's injury. So we'll see what happens there. All right, let's wrap up here with Liga MX. I look at this table, by the way, for Clausura. Club America is bottom of the table, which is kind of unbelievable. And they're going to be facing Chivas in this game, by the way, which is, I don't know, Club America bottom, unbelievable. But that's a big matchup here. And obviously the other part of the news, the biggest part of the news is Querétaro will play home matches with no fans for 1 year. They're also going to ban their Barra supporters groups as well for 3 years as part of the punishment following, of course, the horrific violent scenes from last weekend that left 26 people injured. And, the news continues to happen. It's just been horrible. I'm actually really surprised that they're even playing a game in the first place, to be perfectly honest with you. But any thoughts on that, Heath? Obviously, Querétaro, who continue, to deal with these horrible news from Mexico.
Yeah, the news is horrible, and obviously there's not that any benefit ever comes out of fan violence, but increased sort of eyeballs and resources towards improved security in the stadiums within the league. There's a lot of things that needed to be changed and modernized within the league there. With regard to Chivas and Club America, since the rules changed around relegation a couple of years ago, there's a far less risk. I believe it was Chivas a few years ago that were sort of flirting with I think it's like a 3 or a 5 year. I think it's a 3-year season window where if you're at the bottom, you can go down to the second league is the way the rules were then. Chivas were actually flirting with that for quite a while, and it was going to be a massive disaster. The rules have sort of changed and shifted to where it makes it much more difficult for anybody to go down. That's a significant part of the financial infrastructure of the league. But with regard to the Querétaro news, it's horrible and horrific, and something that I hope never happens again there, and that the safety protocols are put in place to protect fans, to protect the Barra, to protect anybody from all sides, and anybody that's just going to enjoy a football match, soccer match.
Yeah, soccer, baby. Let's talk about the
Football
soccer
in this situation.
Yeah. So yeah, the sanctions are. It was really important for the people that run the Mexican league to set a precedent here, and I think the sanctions could be considered harsh. Maybe not from a fan perspective. They're banning the Barra Bravas for 3 years from Querétaro, but for them to say you got to sell the team, like the ownership is being back to the previous owners, Grupo Caliente, who also own Tijuana, and that is interesting as well, that they're having that type of influence, that you guys didn't do a good job and this is what's going to happen. So I'm very similar to the Chelsea thing. I'm very interested to see the fallout of these types of decisions.
And they have, by the way, till the end of the year, they're helping to facilitate the sale of that through the end of this year.
Yeah, they've also been fined 1.5 million pesos, which is around $70,000 as well. So yeah, Jimmy, keep going, buddy.
No, and then with regard to the biggest matchup, and we have 2 of the most successful teams in Mexico, Club America taking on Chivas Guadalajara at the Estadio Azteca. That is going to be a sick game because Club America suck this season. They're terrible. They are bad. And they already fired their manager, Santiago Solari, Real Madrid player. He's been sacked, and they brought in, his name is Fernando Ortiz, who was coaching the U20s at Club America. And now he's getting his chance. I think he's going to play younger players. He's been around the younger players. He's seen the talent, and that might inject them with a little bit of that new manager bounce as he tries to balance the squad against a game they need to win. This is not even where they are in the standings, just they have to beat Chivas. This is like a must win, and the fans demand it. So I think the Club America will be up for this one. But again, if you're going to make some time for a game in North America, you got to pick one MLS one and then watch this one, Club America versus Chivas.
Yeah, I just can't believe Club America are bottom. That's incredible. But yeah, there you have it. That's a big game. And Chivas Guadalajara are 9th, by the way, in this clausura situation. All right, well, that's it. That's it from all of us. And guess what? We were aiming for under an hour, and we're just about to do it. If we do final thoughts super quick, Jimmy Conrad, first you.
I've got nothing. Let's make this super quick.
Heath Pierce?
Des said keep it under an hour, so I've got nothing either. We talked a lot.
And James Bench.
Oh, I'd just like to talk for a little. No.
Thank you, everybody. Qué Golazo Pod on Twitter, youtube.com/Qué Golazo. Jimmy Conrad, James Bench, Heath Pierce, LME. We will see you next time. Have a great rest of your week and your weekend.